this evening to a community discussion about the installation that Ézé Amos has gifted to our community, the story of us. I look forward to hearing the discussion between Ézé and Dr. Douglas. Before we get started, I want to remind everyone that Saturday, Ézé is going to lead a tour of the installation on the downtown mall, starting at 11 a.m. The meetup is at the water fountain at the intersection with 2nd Street on the downtown mall. And the guided tour will take about an hour and is only a few blocks long, so it's not an enormous amount of walking. This evening is hosted by the Charlottesville Vets. We support and promote Democratic candidates and leaders at the local, state, and national levels. We're the party of inclusion, or at least strive to be the party of inclusion. A work in progress with members from every walk of life, every race, religion, and sexual orientation. The conversation tonight will be with Dr. Andrea Douglas. She is the executive director of the Jefferson School African American Heritage Center, which is an incredibly important institution here in Charlottesville. I think we are almost all familiar with it. And Ézé Amos, about whom I could talk at great length. Ézé is a photographer and photojournalist who originally trained in the sciences at the University of Ibadan, Nigeria. I originally met him, he may not even remember, in the emergency department at the University of Virginia. And I can promise you that if you walk into the UVA emergency department right now and just stand there and say, Ézé, heads will whip around. Ézé, is Ézé here? He is beloved everywhere he goes. He immigrated to Charlottesville in 2008. His local photo projects have included a number of things, including a project that I think many of us participated in, the Portraits project at the beginning of the pandemic. His photographs have appeared in the New York Times, NPR, Getty Images, the Washington Post, and many other national and international outlets. We are lucky to have him here in our community, and I can say I am personally grateful to him. There is no one who could have documented these events who I personally, and I think our community, would have trusted to tell the story as it should be told. So I will now turn it over to Ézé and Dr. Douglas.
Thank you. Does the mic?
Do they work, or are we?
Let's talk right now.
No.
I don't know. I don't need the mic. I don't need it.
We're rolling.
Well, yeah, like, I'm good like this.
You all can hear me in the back, right? I usually am the one people are like in the mic. So anyway.
I want to say it too.
Yeah, it's kind of this.
Yeah, I like it this way.
So when Catherine talked about this idea that we can think of no one else who could have documented what happened in 2016, 2017, other than Ézé. I think that we want to talk a little bit about how that happened, and then how those images emerge as a consequence of that. I also want to say, for my own plug, there is another exhibition that opened at the Jefferson School African American Heritage Center of Ézé's photographs from this period. But that exhibition is called Bearing Witness. And that exhibition is about Ézé as a photographer and an artist.
Such a screen shot, we can see it. We can see him at home. Sorry.
This is about all you can do.
Okay. But don't stop talking.
Can they see through you?
Yeah, they can, but it's but your video, is starters.
No, it's your video that was sick.
Actually, now
It's your video.
here, it's me. See, it's in the, so, right.
Oh, yeah.
That's what you're holding.
Right.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
No, you're good. You're good.
It's the benefit of technology.
Yes.
So, yeah, so that exhibition at the Heritage Center is an exhibition that is about Ézé. And it moves as, through his voice. And so in some ways, it acts as a background for what you're going to see. So
Yes.
you can see both are up through September. But let's start from the very beginning. When did you start taking photographs?
Wow. When did I start taking photograph? My journey to or into the art of photography was pretty serendipitous because I did not mean to start photographing or to be a photographer, but I stumbled upon the art and it was one of those things that I was like, oh God, this is what I've been looking for, kind of situation. It was real quick, I'll just run you through the story. I was bored at this lab that I was working at as a technician back in Nigeria, and as a temporary staff, I couldn't go to the cafeteria because I don't have access to the cafeteria. So I had to go to the library to spend my, for my 1 hour break period. So lunch break period. So I went to the library and I picked up a journal. It's called Photography Annual. And that was it. I saw some beautiful photos that caught my eye. And I just kept asking myself, I believe I can make photos like this, but I don't know anything about photography. I don't even know anything about cameras. At this point, I had never, ever, ever touched a camera before. This was back in Nigeria, like I said. So that photo made me, the curiosity from like, how did that photo get made and all of that made me start, trying to get my hand on the camera. And a friend of mine, at some point gave me his dad's old Pentax Shahi. I would never forget that camera because that camera and the roll of black and white film that I bought with the little money I had. And it's a mix of everything, a lot of things, and luck. Because if I had, so the first roll of film that I put in that camera, the photos that came out of that were perfect. Now, that was why I said luck. But there was no way I knew what I was doing. I was just lucky to take some good photos. So if I had taken a terrible photo on that day, trust me, photography would have been history for me because I'll be like, oh, I hate this. But I got lucky, I got some good photo, and I was like, oh, I'm good at this. Of course I wasn't. So because I quickly realized that I needed to learn and practice and stuff. But that first photo gave me the encouragement and the push that I needed. And I was just 19 back in Nigeria. This was back in the what was it? 96, 90, yeah, late mid 90s or so. And that has been, from there, I just kept going. I never stopped. I just enjoy the arts, and most photographers will tell you the same thing. The moment you get into it, it's hard for you to put your camera there. I hardly ever go anywhere without my camera. As a matter of fact, yeah, she has my camera there. I go everywhere with it. Because of what I do and because of the love that I have for this art, I don't ever want to miss moments. And the crazy thing about this, I'm sure most of you who photograph will know this, the day you leave your camera at home is the day you'll see something that you're like, oh God, I missed that. And when I go out with my camera, things don't happen. It's crazy. So yeah, that was how it started for me.
Yeah. And, my understanding, my recollection, for instance, of some of the work that you were doing just before this was your mall series, where you were on the mall photographing people on the mall. Tell us a little bit about that, because I think there is something in that work that drives a little bit of what we're seeing here.
Yeah, that was something that I picked up just from like walking the mall with my little girl. She was very tiny then, but I walked the mall and I noticed every day I go on the mall, I see different people. So, something changes, I meet, I encounter a lot of people and that I don't see the next day. Basically, the mall is always like very fluid and all that. And that got me thinking like, oh, I'd like to document the mall, just document people every day in Charlottesville. That's how the idea or the whole civil people every day came about. I coined that hashtag and I started documenting. I created a a page on Instagram. I just started, putting the photos in there. If you go there now, I haven't done much in a while because I've just been busy doing some other stuff. But normally you'll see me on the mall photographing just anything. But the one thing that would make this is Ézé's photo is that it has to have people in it. I am a people photographer. It has to have not animals, not houses, not landscape. I don't hate those things. I just my style of photography, or what draws me to photography, is about telling stories with humans, and I appreciate all the forms that we present, from our hand gestures to our facial expression, and all of those little things that make us who we are, or makes us individuals. Those are things that really fascinates me, and that's why I am really drawn to photographing people as against other, things that you can think of photographing.
Did that experience what, as a consequence of doing that work, and trust me, I'm getting it. What did you learn about Charlottesville? Because I think that project is an ongoing project that sometimes you were doing it in the day, sometimes you were doing it at night, but in its aggregate, there's something that it says about that mall and about this place. And I'm wondering if you've yet had an opportunity to sift through that and come up with some notion of what you're experiencing and how that experience tells you something about this place.
Yeah, it's amazing how things you never or things you're not looking for find you, or conversations you're not looking to start them just come and hit you in the face, and you're like, oh, well, I guess we're having this conversation. And that's kind of like the case of me photographing on the mall. I quickly realized when I started the series that I was photographing a lot of, I'm just going to put it out there, a lot of white people on the downtown mall. And I realized that every time I get to photograph a Black person on the downtown mall, it's either they're panhandling on the mall or they're homeless. Every now and then I get a Black family walking the mall, but most of the time, 80% of the photos I was getting were photos of white folks, which there's nothing wrong with me photographing white folks, but it got me thinking, where are the Black folks? And this was my early days in Charlottesville when I just moved here. So it got me. Yeah, so that got me thinking about, where are the Black folks, and got me asking a lot of questions, which got me into wanting to document things happening around Charlottesville, which of course was what led me into photojournalism, trying to cover some of the stuff happening here in town. And I guess that was what led us to right now.
And in my country, they say, stick a pin. So stick a pin on that thought, because he has located himself in some ways with this early set of work. So tell us about the first photo. We certainly will get into that conversation, but that idea of not having your camera on a day, how did you come up to begin this journey?
It was crazy. I knew you were going to ask this question. So,
my favorite thing.
It was I drove my ex-wife. I drove her to work. She had her office was downtown, and we lived somewhere off of High Street, or Locust. And at that time, I wasn't really plugged into Charlottesville, the politics of Charlottesville, the community itself. And I got downtown and I saw a group, like hundreds of people, at the base of the Dan Lee monuments, with Confederate flag. I knew very well. I was like, okay, that shouldn't be there. So I dropped her off and I raced home real quick, grabbed my camera and came back there to photograph. The luck, I don't know if it was luck or just share, whatever you want to call it. I was the only person, professional, if you want to say, that had his camera there that day. So some of the photos I captured from that day, Civil Weekly called me and said, "Oh, we heard you got some photos from that day. Can we publish some of those photos?" And that was how it all started. They published that photo, and then they published some other photos, and I was like, "Oh, okay, I can go out and get some more photos and stuff." That's how the journey started for me. But the main thing about this, and the reason why we're talking about that first day, was that was when I got involved in the, so to say, the movement, wanting to ask questions. Like, for real, why is the statue there? For real, let's talk about this. Why do we have this thing here? Why, folks are talking about moving it. Why aren't they, we should do something about it. I started asking those same questions most of us were asking back then. And that was what drew me into it and got me to start showing up at every single protest, gathering, sighting of all this people. And that, yeah, documenting all of that, got me to documenting August 11 and 12. And I guess the rest is what they say, history.
I'm going to ask one question, and I'm going to go through, take you on a little tour. But there are so many images that he's taken of this, and I'll leave that for you to tell how many there are. And so, and there is that first moment, and then there is that last picture, whatever it is. And for me personally, I can see a change in the trajectory of how your photographs are occurring. I think that when you go into the exhibition at the Heritage Center, you see it more clearly than you might see it on the mall because of that purpose. So can you tell us, from the first photograph you took to the last photograph you took on August 20 something, right? 21st. What about you and your relationship to the image remain the same or changed, or however you'd like to describe it?
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, I see some. So my buddy's here. Zach is a photographer, and Zach will bear witness to this. All he can, he has. I'm sure he's experienced this. I've been asked this question before, and this is me answering this question. Folks have asked me, how do you remain neutral when you're photographing, especially 2020 when I was photographing the protest of, the whole George Floyd and all of that, police shooting and protesting, in DC, in Richmond, everywhere. I travel wherever stuff is happening. I go there to document it and on assignments most of the time. But the question was, someone was asking me how I try to stay neutral. And my first thing that came out of my mouth without thinking about it, I looked at this guy, a white gentleman, and I said, "Look at my skin, I'm black. What do you mean? These people protesting are protesting because my kind is being killed. And you're asking me how I stay neutral. The truth of it is, I'm not neutral. I'm doing my job I'm a professional photojournalist. I'm gonna try to get the photos out there. I'm gonna do what I've been assigned to photograph. But in here, it's different. What I'm feeling is different. So in a way, you would see, and it's to come true with my photos. And this is still me trying to answer this question, that what you expose to, what affects you, come true in your photo, whether you like it or not. And Zach, please tell me, for real, what you're concerned about, what you're passionate about. One way or the other will show in the photos and how you take those photos. Yeah, and that's the point I'm trying to make. Because I'm passionate about the killing of Black folks, and all of these things that have been happening, that would definitely come true in the type of photos I take, all the angles I photograph, all the way I tell the story. If I'm asked to go photograph a particular event and given a particular assignment, like this is specifically what we want you to take, the way I would approach it would be different from the way my other colleague would approach it, because I am approaching it, or I'm coming at it from a different place of knowing, and they coming at it from a different place. So it's, so now to answer that question, that day when I started photographing, going into this, I was just doing photography, or just photographing everything. And then when it became personal, when the people started, I got attacked. I was attacked on that day, and stuff leading to that. Even before that, I saw the type of violence and what these folks are capable of. So the way I tell the story was kind of, affected in a way, because I care about my community. So I want to tell a better story of my community. That doesn't mean that I'm not photographing everybody. I photograph everything around, but the emphasis will be telling that story that puts my community where I want my community to be, and then show the photos of these people coming in to destroy or bring harm to our community. So if I don't know if I'm answering this question right, but throughout the whole process of the whole period of taking those photos within that time, ideas changed. What I was really concerned about change, and what I was passionate about change, and actually at a point I told myself I care less about these people and more about the folks that are here. So I took less of their photos of their sighting and more of everyday Charlottesville people, which in a way is what I care about. And every day, you Google Charlottesville, and the first thing that comes up is this photos of these people, which also, I'm just gonna jump into this. You haven't asked me this yet, but which is why this series actually came about, the story of us. I decided that, enough of those photos. Why do we tell the story of August 11 and 12 from that angle? Yes, I know I give credit to everybody that was on the front line. I give credit to all the folks that put themselves out there. I give credit to them. But at the same time, I also want to put a human face to Charlottesville. Charlottesville, to me, I believe the world has, or the rest of the world, see us as an event or as a hashtag. And my argument is, no, we are people. People live here. And putting faces, human faces, and human stories, narratives behind those people, and sharing that with the rest of the world. Maybe, just maybe, we'll get them listening and be like, oh, maybe we missed this. Maybe, yeah, something terrible happened there, but this, you can see I can see myself there. I can relate with what they're going through, and maybe Charlottesville will start. People will start seeing us, again as a nice place to live in. A place to come work or raise a kid in. I know that because I'm raising my daughter here.
So that's where I was going. Now you sent me on another path. So why don't we take a look at some of those images, and you can talk a little bit about that idea.
Sure.
And then I'll stick a pin in my question. And
All right, for you guys, folks at home, I'm going to share my screen here so you can all see this. All right, I'm going to run through this photo, then just stop me wherever to tell you whatever it is you want to ask me about the photos. So these photos here that I'm going to be showing are the photos hanging up on the mall, on the trees on the downtown mall, and just want to run through all the same photos here so you guys can have a first-hand look. And just maybe you guys would also get a first-hand listen to some of the stories. This was August 12, 2018, a year after the first anniversary of the events. Sorry, they're not arranged chronological in any order. It's not in any particular order, because it's been a long day, just bear with me. This shot right here is from one of the, chalk markings on 4th Street. If you remember, guys, folks, went out there, and we all, I'm sure I wrote something. I probably drew a heart sign and wrote something, and we all did that. So of all of those, which, by the way, I think there's actually, I'm thinking of doing something with that, because there were hundreds of photos that I took of just the markings of the street and all that. But this is one of them that I thought was a little appropriate, or something to talk about. This is the conversation starter. Because, I've shown this to folks that are like, oh yeah. And some people are like, wait a minute, let's talk about this. Because this was the first thing people said a week, a month after that happened. They were like, oh, it's time for us to heal. Like, wait a minute, heal? We have to talk about this. Let's talk about it. Let's get to the bottom of this. Let's try to understand some basic things about what happened before we can start talking about that, which I think was my reason not to show the photos before now. This is why I waited 5 years. It was not by accident. It was a conscious decision to wait 5 years to show my photos. Because I thought, even I have, I needed time to heal myself. I needed time to process all of this so we can start talking, and then maybe start moving towards the place of healing. That was taken the night after the white nationalists came with their tiki torch at Market Street, now Market Street Park, used to be Lee Park. The day after that, city members came out they came with their tiki torches, but we came with candles and we took back. It was called Take Back Lee. Oh, I can't remember what it was called. Yeah. But we all came out that night, and we had our candles and folks talked and we prayed and did all sorts. And we didn't know that something even bigger was coming our way. Yeah. This was the day after the August. This was August 12th, 2017. This is some of the folks that were in direct or got hit by the car or got injured when the car crashed into the crowd. This photo was taken on 4th Street on that day. I included this photo of now retired, he left the force, Captain Mooney. He was a police officer with Charlottesville Police Department. I included this photo for a reason. I said to myself, I wanted to tell the story of us as a community, right? And I picked all the photos. I got all the photos that I wanted to show. And then I said to myself, I want to hear the story from that angle too. Because some of those guys, not all of them, but some of those guys consider themselves to be part of this community. Some of them live here, some don't. A lot of them don't, but some of them live around here. I got his photo because I got a little close to him, because after that event happened, remember I told you someone punched me in the face? He was the one investigating that, and he tracked the person down to Tennessee, and he gave me the detail of this person and all of that. So I got to know him. So I see him around like, hey, Mooney, and all that. When I started putting these photos together, I reached out to him because I know he would want to talk to me. Because we've developed that kind of rapport, so to say. And it was that was what happened. He wanted to tell me his story. This was the day after the August 11 when the car crashed. We all gathered at 4th Street to mourn and for a vigil, an impromptu vigil, I call it, because people just started showing up, and before you knew it, there were thousands there. And I looked down Water Street, and there he was, a lone policeman looking into the sea, like crowd of people. And in my head, I was like, I wonder what he's thinking. Like, he's there just looking into the crowd. What is he thinking? I was just curious, because I could have come up with all sorts of stories, because I was really mad at the police department. But I just wanted to get that photo. So I took that photo. And you guys will get to hear his story tomorrow. When you walk the mall and you see the photo, just go to the QR code at the base, scan it with your phone. You will hear his voice tell you what he was thinking. That I'm not going to tell you tonight. If you don't know this guy, then
There's a,
this is Uriah Fields. Fun story, interesting story about Uriah. The first time I met Uriah was the first day I started photographing the movement, so to say, at Lee Park, when the flaggers came the very first time. That was in 2016. Uriah was there. He was screaming, he was singing the top of his lungs, and the same gesture like that, you know. And I was like, who is this man? He was a little bit annoying to me then. I was like, grr, get out of here. And then I got to know him later, and he became sort of like a landmark for downtown. Like if I don't see him around, I don't feel safe in a way. Like whenever I hear his voice, it kind of like grounds me. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm still here in Charlottesville. I don't see him anymore. I know he's still active on Facebook. Those of you that have been getting stuff from him, he's still active on Facebook. He's a very, very interesting gentleman. He would walk the mall singing, and he'll hand you a little piece of paper with either his website or a book that he just written, or a quote. And singing Amazing Grace, or whatever song that he's singing. But whatever he's singing it with passion. This photo was taken in 2018, the first anniversary of August 11 and 12. He was on 4th Street singing Amazing Grace, and I could not help myself. I was like, yeah, this has to be captured for history. And I'm so happy that I was able to include this in this series here. This is 4th Street. Story behind this real quick, and I'm going to run through it real quick. I go to 4th Street every night after this. I go back there just to photograph. And every time I get there, the candles are lit. And I was always asking myself, who does this? Who comes there to light all this candle? And one day I went in there, I walked to 4th Street, and there she was lighting the candle. You know, I was so happy, like, oh, I found her. So I went there, took some photos, and I got in front of her, photographing. She looked up at me, kind of acknowledging that I was there. And then she just continued doing what she was doing. So I went really close and I took a photo. The mistake I made was I did not ask her her name. Because right now, I don't even know who she is. And yeah, I put it out there for folks who know her, or of her, to ask her to reach out to me. I want to share this photo with her. I want to hear her story. But yeah, when you see this photo out there, you can scan it and hear my story of how I photographed this. And but yeah, her voice would not be in this because I could not locate her. And which also was very interesting about this project, because most of the people, almost all of them, I had to locate all these folks to go ask them about their personal stories of those moments captured. It was a lot to find some of these folks, but I found almost all of them.
but he
except
shouldn't
for her.
put her picture up there without permission. Yeah.
This was the events of when the Klan came to town, and the cops ushered them in and escorted them out of town, and then began to descend on us, the people. I'm saying this not because I want to paint the cops in a bad light, but I was there. I saw it. They escorted the Klan back to where they parked their car. They give them time to get up out of their robes and get into their clothes, got into their cars, and then escorted them out of town. And then the cops came back, for real, took a knee, donned their riot gear, mask on, and started firing tear gas at the people.
Wow.
I still cannot make sense of that day. So this moment, I still cannot make sense of it. I don't know what were they thinking? Who gave those orders? I don't know. Blows my mind. My friend April, this photo is like very, very special to me. I know her personally, and I know her story, and yeah.
Can you share it?
Yeah, I'd like to share her story. Yeah, let's do this. I'd like to share this one story so you guys get a taste of the stories to come.
My name is Amos, and I've lived in and around Charlottesville for over 20 years. When these photographs were taken, I was 49 years old, and my soul had just broken. I came to 4th Street the evening of August 13, 2017, to honor the life of Helen Fire, a young woman who I had never met, but whose life had been tragically taken in a terror-filled moment right before my eyes just the day before. When I returned that next evening, a small crowd had begun to gather at the site of the car attack. I sat on the curb, not far
I hear it.
and pushed aside.
That's because it's, yeah.
The crowd began to go around me. I felt their shock, disbelief, and terror. We overcame and I began to leave. I didn't stop for days. For the weeks and months that followed, I continued to mourn for all the lives that were shattered that weekend, as did our community. It was partially a sense of normalcy. The city and its people were forever changed. Some found strength in adversity, others struggled to cope, but no one was untouched by the experience. As we approach the 5th anniversary of August 11th and 12th, I remember the strength and resolve that our community exhibited when we became the target of external hatred. But I also reflect on what has happened in the wake of those events, and the internal unrest and divisiveness that ensued and spread across the nation. I hold out hope that Nietzsche was correct in his belief that which does not kill us makes us stronger.
That's April's story. And stories like that, personal narratives of folks that were out there that day, folks that I photographed, are attached to each of the photos that you see downtown. So when you walk the mall and you scan that, you can hear their voices describing to you the moment that photo was taken and what they were feeling, what they were going through, and basically telling you the side of the story. I'm just gonna keep running down the photos. This was the photo I was trying to describe to you the very first day I went out to photograph, at least the gathering at Lee Park. This was back in 2016. This is my good friend, Will Jones. He stood right amidst the flag waving men that came to Charlottesville with their Confederate flag. If you look up there, you can see a little bit of that flag up there. And the cool thing about this, what really strikes me about this photo, Will would tell a different story about this photo, but I still believe that this is a photo of the defiance. This is a photo that says, "You will not scare me." This is a photo that says, "No, I don't need this." I mean, the photo speaks for itself. And that's what really struck me about this photo, what this man stood for. Again, yeah, go look for this photo downtown and hear his story. 4th Street, August 13, 2017. Right after I'm sure you were there, right after the little guy that invited all these people to our town decided that, I'm talking about Jason Kessler, when he decided that he was going to give a press conference a day after his friends had killed one of us. He invited, and then he wanted to give a press conference down at the City Hall, and folks turned on him, and it got really ugly. Right?
So he got slapped.
He got slapped. He got somebody, a lady mounted him and took him down. I photographed all of that. Yes, I do. But that is not, I would, if this was a different kind of project, yes, I'll show those photos. But if there's anything you've noticed from all of these photos that I'm showing you, or in all of these photos, it's the fact that there is not a single photo of violence. These are photos of everyday people that you can relate with, everyday moments that you can relate with. Yeah, people cry, people hold hands and all that. There's a reason why I'm showing these photos, not because I don't have photos that will make me go, ooh. But I don't think ooh is what we need right now. Personally, I don't think ooh is what we need right now. You can make a different argument, but personally, I don't think that's what we need. I think what we need right now is for us to see ourselves in what's, the type of story we want to tell. I'm about, us starting to talk about what happened and maybe moving towards the place of healing for us as a people. And that's why I'm showing some of these photos, and that's why we have these photos up on the downtown mall. I want to connect with those whose stories were never really given the airplay. Folks wanted to hear, or the media wanted to hear, stories of all of that stuff. The louder, the scarier, the ones, those are the ones that would get the headlines rolling and all of that. Some of the photos, some of the stories were not, these stories would not sell, sell papers or make the headlines for them. And that was why I wanted to go to these people and ask them about what happened and get their story, so that we can all learn something from their experience. And maybe, just maybe, that would get us to want to tell our stories too. Because I know we all have a story of that day. We all have a personal experience of what we saw that day. These people are just a handful of us telling their story. A star flanked by a lot of community members that some of you know very well. This day was the day the jury read the verdict against James Field at the courthouse. This photo is very special to me. I must tell you, I did not post that photo. They did that all themselves. They gathered around Star, and I was like, "Oh, this is perfect." So I took those shots. Minutes after I took the shots, they kept doing their thing, but it just happened real fast, and I captured that. And yeah, you would want to hear Star's story if you see it on the downtown mall. Very powerful description of this day. This is also 4th Street, when folks gathered on August 12th, 2017. Yeah, the photo is pretty self-explanatory. You can see people are really, really shocked and trying to get, just get a grip of or make sense of what has happened. I'm going to run through this a little faster so we can get to some of this. This photo is not the photo you think it is. This is not the alt-right walking the lawn. No, this was when and I was part of this. If you see it up there, it says, "Take back the lawn." So when UVA organized a big rally to walk the same path those people walked to reclaim that space for the community, for UVA community, for Charlottesville, however you want to look at it. But this photo was made on that day where we tried to claim back that space for us. This photo was taken in 2018, not in Charlottesville, but in Montgomery. We had made a trip to Montgomery with Heather Hyatt's mom, Susan Bro, and it was at the Southern Poverty Law Center, a museum, where a photo of her daughter was. And it was just a moment thing, she was looking at it and then she reached, and this was like all happened within seconds. She just wanted to feel that. And I just so happened to be standing there. So I got the photo. If I was looking around or whatever, I would have missed it. And that moment would have been gone. But yeah, that moment was caught. And again, look for that photo, scan the code, and hear her describe what's going on for her. She said some very, very interesting and some really, really moving things. What she was saying to her daughter, what was going on through her mind, and all of that. You can hear her personal narrative in her own voice, using her own words. It's powerful. I tell you this personally, having listened to, or listened to all the stories or interviewed all those people. It's amazing. It's amazing what folks have experienced. And the idea is, when you listen to all of them, try to listen to all of them. And in the end, when you have them all together, you'll be like, oh, wow, I know. You'll know so much about our community because everybody has a different take on the same thing you think you've heard before. Everybody has a different take on it. Some people would hit you with a curveball. You'd be like, what? They have a different idea to some things that you think we all have an agreement, or kind of like, oh, we agree this is what that is. Somebody will come and be like, nope, I see it different. And that's the idea behind this, interviewing 36 different people and getting their perspective on all of these things that happen. This is the photo that I'm using as the last that I'm showing in the series. Like I said, this is not in any form, any. It's just, I'm just picking the photos at random here. But out there, this photo is the last photo of the series in the project. And the reason I made this photo the last one is, it's kind of like a metaphor to get a message out there. That because in telling the story, because we're doing all of this, doesn't mean that we'll stop fighting. We'll keep marching. It doesn't have faces, just shadows and stuff. It just represents us. It represents the movement. That it's not, we're not sitting down and waiting for the next August 11 and 12 to happen. We are, a community, and we'll keep fighting and pushing and making sure these things don't happen in our community again. This was a service at the United Methodist Church, right? Yeah. I have dates to all of this. I don't have them in my head right now, but I have on the captions to all the photos downtown. They're all dated and the time the photos was taken. So you have the dates, the time, and the description of what that event is and all that. And again, this one you would hear the voice of the pastor. Actually, in this conversation, there are two pastors talking and trying to describe the moments. Yeah, I believe you would enjoy this. This is my dear friend Abby. Yes, you all know Abby. And this photo was captured on 13th of August 2017. And again, go listen to it. I'm not going to tell you Abby's story, but when you hear her story, you would understand what I mean. This big shot of everybody on the downtown on 4th Street is one of my best photos from the whole series, because it just shows what we're doing as a community. We're all dazed and just standing there what do I do? But the cool thing was everybody showed up, and we just wanted to be present and just show love and show support. Didi, I just met Didi. I didn't know Didi the day of. I only met Didi or got to know Didi about a month or two ago. But I know so much about Didi now, and he told me his story. I would like to share Didi's story with you guys. Again, this is the first time outside myself and Natalie that have been working on this project. By the way, thank you very much, Natalie. She helped with this project a lot. She did all the heavy lifting on this project. I'm going to let you guys listen to Didi's story real quick.
I'm Didi. and I saw it all. I ran an Airbnb in a little rental house. I didn't know the Nazis had booked my house. We were staying at my house. I saw everything. I was at St. Paul's Church the night before and watched the UVA, and we were afraid to leave the building, afraid their chimney outside. Got the outside Katie Curry. This has been. I knew it was monumental. I was the cook at the Haven for breakfast. All this happened at Lee Park across the street. And we planned on staying up and keep our people safe and not have the people in need and out on the street being harmed. I watched the picture from our church in March. I heard the chant of the martyrs chanting, "Jews will not replace us," and blood, oil, and extra facts. No one ever said on the video, you talk about the Jews and the blood and soil, and everything other line that echoed off the building. My oldest son called me. He knew I was buried. The guy was from far away. Go away from there. It's now the next day. Sure, it's all right for fun. It's all right for memorial. And I took my daughter and son-in-law and grandchildren who were away there. And they're in the background of the picture. And I brought them here to experience what I was experiencing and what this community experienced. The sadness of that day, the pain of that day will never go away. It's sad for every positive. You know, want to hope for our future, but I'm still sad.
Yeah. That's what, most of us experience a lot of, stories like this. It's hard to hear some of the stories and, leave their truth and leave someone else's truth and walk their path of kind of, because the idea is for them to, they take you to that moment and have you sit in and experience what he was experiencing. Really, what made me pick this photo? Like I said, I didn't know DD before I picked this photo. His face, look at that face. I looked at it and I was like, this, I just wanted to know. Every time I looked at his face, he almost I capped the whole back tear. I mean, look at that face. That's what happened to us. Those are the stories I want to tell. I want the world to hear us and hear our story and hear of our grief and our pain and everything we went through as a community. We're definitely not a hashtag. So the shrine was made, I'm sure it was just things just started collecting and it happened for Heather, and this is weeks, if not months in, and you can see some of the flowers like dried up and stuff, and but folks kept coming back and placing different things and different materials on Fourth Street. Yeah, this happened to us. This is Charlottesville. This is Pastor Phil, Rabbi Rachel. I don't remember the other gentleman's name. But yeah, they were all there on 4th Street.
It will come to me.
Yeah. Well, he's still here in town, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. See, that's how you know that we are a tight community. You all know him already. That is wonderful. This doesn't happen every day. It's not, you don't go to, not many community will you go to and be like, oh, that guy, and be like, oh yeah, I know him. He's just around the corner. Stuff. This is Reverend Smash. I'm sure, so you know her?
Yes. Yeah.
Some beautiful people. I got to know these people, most of the people that I photographed. After August 11 and 12, I got to know them personally. I got to make friends with some of those people. And yeah. I don't know what else you want to say about this. Go listen to her. Or go listen to the story. Yes, that's Elizabeth. That's Doreen. The time of this photo, I didn't know any of them. Again, that's a beautiful thing about this community. I've gotten to know all of them. Friends with both of them. Amazing story. At the time I took this photo, they both didn't know each other. It was just like, oh, you look like you're from here. Hi, how are you doing? Are you okay? Checking in with each other, looking out for each other. That's all we did. This was the morning of August 12th at the First Baptist Church. Connor West had just spoken, and a few other folks have, just said some words, and then they invited all the clergymen and the community leaders that were going to be the fronts or leading the march, coming from First Baptist to Market Street. And they all came to the front, which you'll see in a minute. And the pastors asked them to stretch their hands and pray for them. I had to go to the back to photograph this because it was just so beautiful. I couldn't resist. But yeah, it was a wonderful church service. Little did we know that the day was going to end in a very, 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 very sad note. I was on 4th Street the day after the car attack. As a dad with his 5-year-old on the shoulder. Today that girl is 11. I don't think today is her birthday, but right now she's 10. She was 5 then, and he describes, the dad tells the story of that day and how they struggled to explain what was happening to their daughter. You would want to hear the stories. Yeah.
That was Robert Lewis.
Oh no, that's
Robert, no, the pastor.
Oh, Pastor Robert Lewis, yeah.
Robert
Yeah.
Lewis.
Yeah, this dad's name is James. I don't know his daughter's name. I didn't want to ask. If you know her, if you know him, Molly, photographer here in town. At the time I took this photo, I didn't know anything. I didn't know any of those people. But now I'm friends with a lot of people in this photo. Again, go check out the story and listen for yourself. Remember when the city brought the love sign? I'm sure you guys are all fans of the love sign. I'm sure. Yeah, it was definitely too soon. But that happened, and the city, the salsa group, the guys, dancing salsa, decided to come out. So the salsa club decided to do a dance, basically to, you're not gonna take our joy kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And they all came and danced, and I was walking the mall that day, which, like I do every day, I was always walking the mall, and I was like, oh, people are dancing. Click, click, click. And yeah, you want to hear his story. The leader, or the guy that formed the club, is Edwin Rohr. So he told me all about that day and the reason why they came out and his experience of August 11 and 12 and the message he was trying to pass through this. So this was part of the Take Back the Lawn. Another friend of mine whom I didn't know back then, but now we're friends. It's like that, and like almost all the photos. I didn't know most of these people there. Another photo that kind of this photo actually was one of the main photos that drew me to want to work on this project. Was just that question. What was she saying to them? What did they say back to her? This was minutes after the crash. You can see the EMS gurney, and the backboard and all of that. I just kept asking myself that question. I asked her, and she told me. She told her story. You guys want to hear it? Yeah. Again, go check it out. I gave you guys 2 stories already. What do you want for me? This is a very usual scene on 4th Street back then. People random from out of town sometimes, or people in town just show up. And some who just start crying or holding each other. Random strangers just hugging each other. There was a lot of love, a lot of show of support, a lot of community. I know the word for it, but everything that shows that brings the. I think that sad event brought out the best in us as humans, and it's unfortunate that it takes, and it happens all the time. It takes for something that crazy to happen for us to start showing our humanity, and we never learn. It's just it's the thing we do, human beings. I don't know. But yeah, I kept seeing, I have a lot of photos like this of just random people hugging, consoling each other. In this case, yeah, this gentleman. That's my good friend, David. I think he moved out of town now, but he told his story and what was going on for him on that day. This was the 13th of August again on 4th Street, and that's Reverend Sekou with him and Seth. One of the chalk marks on 4th Street, and this one reads, "Let the hate be washed away by the rain. The fight was not in vain. Blessed be." I don't know who wrote it, but I think that was a message to us, or to them, to whoever was reading it. This is a year later, the first anniversary of August 11 and 12. They all met at the spot where it all started for them the year before. You want to hear this one? You definitely want to hear the story because I interviewed both of them. I interviewed Susan Burrow and I interviewed Putney, and they both talked. And you can hear the stories overlap. I had to include both stories. I couldn't, because we try to use just one story for a photo, but the stories were too good, so you just go listen to it. This is also on 4th Street. This was months later. All right. Sorry, are you good?
Yeah, I think it's good way to go.
Okay, cool. All right. This was the front. This was the folks in the church were stretching their hands towards, praying for these folks here that day. I'm almost done with these photos. I think this is it actually. That's the last set of photos. You guys went through all 36 photos. Thank you very much.
For the comments that we have some time for questions. Does anyone have a question? Good.
Well, I'm sure you've taken many photographs.
Here, hold on one second, can you mute yourself there and I'll, just for people that zoomed in here.
A little bit of a nuisance. Oh. Okay.
Well, I'm sure you've taken many photographs from which you've selected these 36.
Yes.
And I'm curious, I mean, I find this very impressive, the blending of the stories and the imagery and the idea that we're going to walk through this space on Saturday as well. But I'm curious as to what you're thinking about with all the other photographs. If you have some, I mean, probably some of them are not going to go anywhere, they're called out, but I'm sure there's a lot of value in many of the other photographs if they're sort of this caliber. I'm curious what other activities or a book or a folio of something that would be a keepsake for the community, perhaps. Have you considered any of those alternatives?
Yes, I have. For this project, I
Oh,
had to.
Well, unmute yourself for this. Sorry about this.
All right. Yes, I have considered that. And for this project, I could only, squeeze 36 photos there. But like you rightly said, or observed, I took a ton of photos. Photos like this that tell the same story. And because I'm showing this project, because this project has been launched tomorrow, doesn't mean it's the end of my interviewing folks. There are tons of photos that I selected, but that did not make this project, this exhibition right now, the show downtown. But there's still a lot of other photos that I'm going to be working with.
Stop screen sharing.
Yes, we do have. So what we're doing right now is all the photos, like we said, when you scan those, you listen to them. But basically what's happening is it takes you to a website that we created, and it's called ourstoriescivil.org. And that's where we're sharing all of these photos and the stories. Scanning the QR code would take you there, but it's again, ourstoriescivil.org. It's not live right now, so if you go there, it's to hit you with a password to go in there. But from noon tomorrow, I will
hit mute, and I'll just handle it. I'll just take over the audio.
Okay.
Well, we'll see. All
Okay.
right.
But
We're
anyhow,
the learning curve.
From noon tomorrow, the website should be live. You'll be able to access all of this photos. But to answer your question, there's a lot of photos that I'm still interviewing folks. I'm still collecting stories and narratives and stuff. And the plan, we're working towards a book. There's a plan to work on a book, to put a book out. It has the same title, The Story of Us. When that book will be out, I do not know. It's definitely gonna be more than 36 photos, 100 maybe. But yes, we are working on something like that. And also, there are other photos that are not this easy to have. So let me put it that way. The really ugly photos of that event. I don't know what to do with those photos yet. And I'm not in a hurry to find out. I'm gonna, just enjoy the process of working with this, getting to know people, because I've made a lot of friends just working with this. I think this is actually a beautiful process for me. Getting to know all these people, getting to chat with all these new people, folks, and get to hear their stories and share my experience as well. So it's been an interesting journey for me working on this project. It's been a lot of work, but I've really enjoyed every field of it.
So the website will have the audio as well.
The website will have all the photos and all the audio. Actually, not just the audio. The website will also include the transcripts of the audio.
Oh, excellent.
So you can actually read it.
Thank you.
So I found it very, very disturbing in that one photograph where some man is cleaning off that woman's face because she's been tear gassed by the police. And when you put it in the context of what had happened, that the Klan came in and the police escorted them back to their cars, and then they left town, and then the police came back and were belligerent towards our community. I guess what I'm wondering is that in your exploration of this whole project and gathering stories, have you heard any story that begins to speak to that horrible interface that is part of Charlottesville? I know that this is about healing the damage of it, but I can't let go of the fact that Charlottesville also incorporates those people.
Yeah, one thing I will tell you though is most of the stories, not all of them, but some of the stories are not like the ones you heard. People spoke their truth. They came out and they expressed how they felt. And some of the stories which you would listen to, you would hear people naming names and actually putting it out there. Because the idea of this project is not to tell folks or to curate what they said or what their response to me would be. I only asked them 3 questions. Describe the moment in this photo. What role do you think, if any, community played in that moment? And where are we as a community 5 years later? Whatever they said back to me, some people actually totally just went their own way and totally disregarded my question. But as part of the project, I had set out not to stop anyone from telling me whatever they want to tell me. Whatever your truth is, you tell me. If your truth is, hey, Ézé, what you just asked me does not come anywhere close to what I want to say. This is what I want to say. And let them say it. The idea is the person in that photo would give you a piece of what they think about that photo. And so whatever you hear is them describing that. So to answer your question, yes, there's some photos, some moments where people actually talk about those moments and stuff and the way Charlottesville is as a community and what's, and the historical context of all of this and how it all started and all of that. All those things are in there. But I'm going to let you go do the scavenger hunts on that one. But by the time you listen to all stories, I bet you, like it has done for me, and Natalie at this point, just 2 of us who listened to a lot of stories, you will come out of it with a greater sense of knowing, like you'll be in a different place. You'll be like, whoa, I know so much now, because this is people's own personal truth, their own story. They're not trying to impose it on anybody. Like, this is my truth. And it does something to you when people open up to you and you get that personal.
My question is about those that told their story. What's been the impact on them since they've had that opportunity and see the photographs, the project that you're putting on?
Yeah, actually every single person that I approached for this were very, very happy to tell their story. Actually, the lady I showed you, the one that leaned over, checking on the 2 people that were part of, that got hit by the car. When I showed her the photo, before I started this project, I showed it to her and I said to her, this moment right here, this photo is the reason I want to do this project, because there's something about this photo that I want to know. I want to know your story. Before she said anything to me, she looked at the photo and she started crying. And she said, I so want to tell somebody my story. I just want to get it out. And that has been the same story I've heard from most of the people that I've asked. Folks just want to talk It's not because they want somebody to hear their voice because they sound really good, but no, because there's so much, they just want to share that experience. Because it's not every day, somebody walks up to you and be like, tell me about that moment. Look at this photo. This is you. That moment. This photo was taken at 6:45 p.m. on the day of, that crazy event. You were doing so. Tell me about that moment. What was that gentleman whispering to you? What were you saying to that person, the lady you were holding her hands? What, you hugging this person and crying? What did she say to you? What was going on there? Tell us. Take us on that journey. Transport us from here to that place and let us live your truth and experience that. And maybe, just maybe, to get other folks to want to tell their story and relieve themselves of all of that burden or all of that they're carrying, and be able to talk more about it. Because the more you start talking about it, you free yourself of something, and you can now start having that conversation, and we can actually start talking about what really happened. Because a lot of us, myself included, I'm not ready to talk about that day because I know, I'm still like, and this experience is actually helping me to get to a place where I want to sit down and share my experience of that day. You're very welcome.
Another question? I have a question.
Yes.
It's interesting to me about the notion, it's the story of us. And you started out with this conversation about how the rest of the world has described the story of us. And I asked you about where you sit in the middle of that story. As you're starting to collect all of that, how much, there is another project, we know that. And here, there's another project. How much do you believe now that you have heard 36 individual stories, that narrative impacts how you're going to continue to parse through this? Again, I'm interested in the through lines. What are you hearing? What is it causing you to look for? Is there an overall narrative that Charlottesville wants the rest of the world to know as a consequence of these 36 individuals?
Yeah, if there's anything that's that echoed, like that was like so loud amongst all the 36 stories, that's us as a community, Charlottesville as a community, that we came together when that event happened. Now, us coming together when that event happened does not say too much about what we are as a community. It says that we came together when that event happened, when there was tragedy and all that. And that was why I was saying this tragedy sometimes brings out the worst or the best in us as humans. For us, the Charlottesville, it brought out, some people were, I personally, I'll tell you my story, walking the street after the event, every single person, and I kid you not, every single soul I walked past stopped and said, hey to me. Years before that, when I say, because I'm from Nigeria, my culture is that if I see somebody that is elderly to me, or that I just consider, oh, this person would be, my elder, I'm supposed to greet them first. So I greet people first. People look at me like, and they walk past. It took me a while to get it that, just mind your business, you're in America. So I took that in and I started minding my business. But folks started behaving like folks would back home after that event. It's a change now. Some folks are still doing it, but that's part of them came out. Where is it before August 11 and 12? Are they keeping it somewhere and just locked it away? Like, oh, we'll just pull this when something bad happens and we'll just, use it for a bit and then go save it back, go put it back there. I know there's something beautiful in us, and that's what I'm trying to bring out. I'm trying to talk about that part of us. Is that part here to stay? or is it permanent? I don't think so, because it came out and now it's kind of like not quite there anymore. But I believe celebrating that part of us just maybe will get us to start thinking more about what we are as a community and what we can do if we really put ourselves out there to want to do it for each other. I guess that's the message here. Like, why not, give your truth? Why not give it all? Why not, if you want to give it all, give it all. Why not? Why show a little bit and hold that? Charlottesville's got a lot of complex history, tons, and we're like any other city with our flaws and all that. But Charlottesville, of course, our history is very complex, and my job is not to change that. It's not my job at all.
That's good, isn't it?
And it's not my calling in life, I can assure you. But all I can do is to be a channel for folks to express or tell their story, or I'll tell it through my photography. That's about all I can do as an artist. What we do with it as a community is up to us. What we do with it as a people is up to us. But I, for one, I'm just gonna keep doing what I know how to do, photographing, and try to tell whatever truth from my perspective, or whatever I consider truth is from my perspective. And trying to do what we can to make this place a better, good place for us to raise our kids and for us to live in peace. That's all I'm asking for, and that's all I'm sure we're all asking for.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I lived here for 30 years, raised my children in Charlottesville for a day, and then I moved to Portland, Oregon for 13 years ago. So I was there when this happened, and people out there had no idea. It just didn't. And when it was a news story, but it wasn't part of it. So coming back here now, and then since then we've had a lot of terrible things in Portland, Oregon that made national news. But what I take home now is like a scenic quote from Charlottesville. You're giving us seeds with these pictures and these words that we can be different, we can be right. So I thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any questions from the audience?
So
there's 11 people on the chat.
Right, we don't seem to have any questions from.
Okay.
So I guess we're about out of time. You want to have any last comment?
I think that's a question.
Yeah, I have one question. How similar of an impact this event will have compared to your witnessing resistance study?
How similar an impact will this have compared to that? Interesting. That witnessing resistance is a powerful show, which if you haven't seen it, you have to go check it out. It's at the Jefferson School. There's a show right there, right now, they're my photos of the same period, August 11 and 12, all everything that happened before, during, and after August 11 and 12, but from a different perspective. The story with those photos are from the photographer's perspective. These are my stories. And this was a beautiful idea from Andrea, because we were thinking, she told me she wanted to do a show about August 11 and 12. And I remember pushing back, like, no, I'm doing a show. I have a show planned. But you can't come, you can't be doing a show about the same thing I'm showing. And she said to me, calm down, I have an idea. And of course I resisted. And then she told me this brilliant idea that she had about this show. Like I said, it's about us as community talking, right? She wanted to show my perspective, ask questions like, why did you take this photo and not that one? Why, and what were you thinking when you took that photo and all that? So when you go see that photo, they're not like this photo. They're not, there's some photos that, that have, discovered one or two things that would make you go, oh, wow, that happened and stuff. They're not as centered as this, if you wanna put it that way. I'm not saying this photos are centered, but these photos are muted. They're like, photos that you can relate with. And that's the idea. And this should not, that didn't happen, by accident. I picked photos that I can see, that I can relate with as a human, not as an activist. Now, the photo at Jefferson is about us resisting the people that came here. It's about us fighting back. So the title should tell you so much about what to see. It's about us standing our ground and saying, hey, we don't want this. And you will see photos of, people at city council meeting, confronting the city authorities and telling them, you guys need to do better and all of that. All of those photos show so much about what we did as a community and how we resisted and all of that. And again, I have to say this, and I have to say it really loud. Those are beautiful collection of photos. I couldn't have thought of that idea. Andrea was so beautiful enough to share her beautiful idea with me and bring out that beauty in those photos, and I really, really appreciate her for that. I cannot say it enough that I really appreciate you and what you've done for me as an artist and how it helps to because the way I think about this thing now has really changed and it keeps changing. That's why I hang out with you. I'm always I'm always like, I'm gonna say something nicer, but yeah, you guys should go check it out. So to answer your question, there's a kind of a common thread there. It's about storytelling, but that one is me telling the story. It's my voice you would hear telling those stories. But again, the photos also tell their own story. But here I shut my mouth and let Charlottesville tell their story, and people of Charlottesville tell their own personal story.
Thank you very much. Remind you that Saturday at 11 at the water fountain of the downtown mall, and you can have a guided tour by Ézé. And that if you want to get communications about other events the Seaville Dams are doing, you can email communications@seavilledams.org. For that, thank you very much for coming out this evening, and thank you to Ézé and to Dr.
For the photos on the wall, look for the caption. They're really small. They're like 4, 5, 6, but you see them. They're just no intentional use on the wall. That would be it. They're attached to the street lights on the wall. So when you see the photo, just look for something unusual. And each of the captions have the photo, so you know you're scanning for that photo. It takes you to the page with that photo, and you can listen to the story. And it's really loud and here, so if you want to, put it just know it. Thank you guys very much.